Alrighty, my friends, Biden has spoken. He spoke just a short time ago about what's going on in the Ukraine and what he intends to do about it. There's been some other updates as to what's going on, so we're going to go ahead and get into that, and I'm going to give you my thoughts on some of the details and see if we can kind of continue to wrap our heads around what's going on here just a little bit. My name is Dan. This is the Soule of Wisdom. Thank you for joining me. I do appreciate it. If you haven't already done so with this channel, please do take a moment and hit that subscribe button and the notification bell. Those things help a small channel like us grow. We're actually growing pretty quickly, but we will grow faster with your help. It costs you nothing to do so. And who knows, you might actually come to really like what we do here. And we certainly hope you do. So I appreciate you watching. I really do. So speaking of watching, if you haven't seen the video that I posted earlier today, please take a moment after this video and take a look at that. I kind of dug into the whys, as far as why is it that Putin, in my opinion, is doing this now. And I think it's important to understand. I think it's important to understand this guy's rationale, why he's doing this, and potentially what the consequences are, not only for Europe, but frankly for all of us. So do give yourself a few minutes and take a look at that when you're done with this one as well. I'd appreciate that. All right, so let's go ahead. If you are visually gifted, watching on YouTube or Rumble, you can play along on your screen. If you're on the podcast side, just listen along. But this from Fox News, Biden announces more Russia sanctions over Ukraine war, 7,000 more troops to Germany. So we knew that Biden was going to offer more sanctions. He had indicated yesterday that they had held some back just in case, Putin decided to go ahead and do this. I don't know if these are like super sanctions in his mind or what. But the bottom line is, if you scan through the article, he's going to put restrictions on most of their major banks now. The idea is to make it harder for Russia to do business in foreign currencies like the US dollar or the euro or the Japanese yen. They're targeting individuals as well in Russia. Couple owners of some real estate companies and such, trying to make it harder for them to do business. And Biden said that he believes that there are much larger ambitions than Ukraine for Putin, to which I say, duh. This guy's made it clear forever now that his belief that the worst thing that happened in the 20th century was the dissolution of the Soviet Union. That's what he thinks, and I think he wants to put it together again. And if you have watched the video that I posted previously, you'll know that I also talked about how if you look at trends, if you look at how these things usually go, if you look at averages, Putin's probably closer to the end of his reign. His time is coming up as the dictator that he is. And as such, especially with a weak West right now, I think the idea in his mind is we're going to go for this now, because now's the time to cement my legacy. Now's the time to put back together what he feels should never have been torn apart. And the West is going to let him do it. And Biden says here, America stands up to bullies. We stand up for freedom. This is who we are. I would agree with that, but I don't know what more sanctions and 7,000 troops going... 7,000 or 70,000? 7,000, right? 7,000, okay. I wanted to make sure I had that right. Anyways, I don't know what putting 7,000 troops in Germany and putting in more sanctions is going to do to stand up to the bully. I really don't. And I'm not a warmonger. I don't want to go to war with these people. But the truth of it is, in my humble opinion, is that if you don't stand up to a bully and especially communicate with them in the language that they're interested in talking in and the language that they understand, they're just going to trample right over you. They really are. I remember when I was in elementary school, there was this one kid who, for over the course of several weeks, was just all over me, just trying to bully me in every way possible. And we were one day, and I was told that, well, you should just ignore him, you should just walk away, turn the other cheek, blah, 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 right? Try to just talk to him, like this stuff ever really works. So one day we were taking this test, a bunch of us in like this side room off the main classroom, and it was like super hot in that room. So I walked over to open the window, and the kid got up and blocked me. And he's like, "What are you doing?" So I'm going to open the window. We're all hot in here. And he was trying to bully me, like, "You're not going to do that. I'm not going to let you do that." I grabbed the kid and threw him against the table because I had just had enough. Nobody in that class ever bothered me again, especially that kid, because at that moment, I spoke to the bully in the language that the bully understood. He knew that I meant business, and we never had an issue again. We both ended up in the principal's office. He got sent home. I did not. And the principal actually took me aside and said, "Good for you." Good luck getting that response from any principal in today's schools, but the truth of the matter is, you can't run from bullies. You can't hide from them. And I'm sorry, but I don't see how sanctions are going to really make a big difference. Because the truth of it is, Putin is probably the richest man in the world at this point. You can't totally pin down his wealth, but that seems to be the situation. And you can't tell me that he really cares about his people. And we'll get into more of that in a minute. But that's kind of where that's at in my mind. Some other interesting news that is going on that has me a little bit concerned. I reported earlier in the first video that there were forces trying to take over the Chernobyl site. Ukraine now claims that they have. So Russia apparently came down from Belarus and they got control of that site. And the real question is, what are they going to do with it? It's a decommissioned site at this point. So I question the why, as I assume we all would. But there's a couple of ideas that I have in mind. 3 of the 4 reactors at Chernobyl were still running after the meltdown at reactor 2, I think it was. But 3 of them are still running, or at least to the point where they were decommissioned. So the question is, they're going to try to fire them back up or something? I don't know. There is this giant sarcophagus that was built over the meltdown site to contain it. And the idea was to contain it for about 100 years until they could clean it up and find better ways to deal with it. But any damage to that and all of that radioactivity gets exposed again. So are they holding on to that as like a, for lack of a better way to put it, a nuclear option? Like a threat point, like mess with us and we'll knock this thing open? It's a question mark. I mean, it sounds crazy, but do you honestly look at this situation and say, "Oh, Putin's totally cool. He's got all his senses"? I'm not convinced that he does. I don't think he's dumb, but I think he's a little bit out of his mind because I think he wants to put the Soviet Union back together. I really do. So this one concerns me, and I'm going to keep watching that. But another interesting thing, this from Twitter, and again, if you are visually gifted, look on your screen right now. These are people, younger people mostly it looks like, that are marching through Moscow. And there have been similar protests going on in St. Petersburg and other areas around Russia. This is really cool, as far as these people kind of marching together and saying, we're not okay with the war. We're not okay with this conflict. But I also have to say there's a little bit of a lesson to be learned there. First of all, there's other images of these people, these protesters being arrested. Now, they're not going to get all of them, but in some areas, it looks like they were rounding up as many as they could, putting them in police vans and driving them off. Okay, so Putin and the government aren't going to stand for this at all. They're going to put down their boot on these people's throats because they are very much a totalitarian regime. They are authoritarian. But I think where the lesson becomes here, and it's not necessarily these people that are marching, because these look like younger people, but certainly their parents, they had a chance back when the USSR broke up and back when Boris Yeltsin was in charge, they really had a chance to move forward as a democratic, free society. But they very quickly figured out that that's hard to do. There's no guarantees. There's not necessarily as much security. You've got to go work hard. You have to put in the work. Countries like the United States, we're a representative republic with democratic leanings, however you want to phrase it, ones that operate like we do or similar to like we do, it's advanced citizenship. It takes a lot of work to hold it together. They quickly figured out that it was hard and it was, difficult financially. You had to work hard, you had to be involved, stuff like that. So then along comes Putin and he's like, I'll help. And the Russian people, unfortunately, were very much like, yes, we need that. And over time, over the years, bit by bit, he's exerted more of his iron fist and more freedoms have been taken from them. And they call themselves a democracy at this point. They call themselves a free society. But the truth is, it's Putin or nobody. And they allowed this to happen. They had their chance and they lost it. So these people can march all day long, and I suppose I applaud them for doing so, but this is also a product of the way that population acted, the way that they did not allow themselves to do the hard work needed to really cement something special there. And now they're back to a real similar situation that they were in the 80s and before, when you had a dictator ruling over you. And these are the wages of that. These people are going to get thrown in jail for protesting. They're going to go to war in other countries, and they're going to live under the boot of a dictator. And that's unfortunate. But I do think there's something to learn from that for us. I don't really care which side you're on, right or left, if you are in favor of Biden or if you miss Trump and wish he was back, or if you want somebody else. It really doesn't matter. I talked a moment ago about countries like ours being advanced citizenship, and it's really true. You've got to fight for what you have and how these countries work. And if you continually give up your freedoms, if you hand more and more over to the government because either it's easier or you feel like it's going to close off something that you don't believe in, but your opponents do, then a freedom is lost for one of you, and there's going to be that tit for tat. When the other people are in charge, they're going to look to get rid of a freedom that you like. And then the next thing you know, you are under the iron fist of somebody else as well. That is something that if we look at where Russia's at and how they got there, I really think we need to take that lesson and make sure that doesn't happen here in the United States and in other Western countries, because we're teetering on that point. We really are. We keep giving away bit by bit by bit, and then the next thing you know, here's going to be some kind of totalitarian ruler, ready to take us over. And you can say, well, Dan, that'll never happen in the United States. Really? Quite honestly, if you look at the time that countries, that empires tend to last on this earth, if you look at the averages, we are on the downside of that average. So that means if we're going to beat the odds, we've got to fight even harder to keep what we have, so that we don't end up in a situation like Russia's in, where we're marching through the streets, but we have a ruler that ultimately doesn't care. He doesn't care about his people. He doesn't care about these sanctions. He doesn't care about anything else. Those with power just want more power. And I think that's where we're at. And the wages of that so far today, friends, 57 confirmed dead in Ukraine with another 169 injured, and we're not even 24 hours into this. So it's only going to get worse. I'm going to go ahead and leave it there. Please do let me know what you think in the comments about what's going on in the Ukraine. I'd love your thoughts. Let me know as well if you think that Putin is the iron-fisted dictator that I think he is, and if you think there's anything the Russian people can do about it at this point. I'd be curious to know. But like I said, I'll leave it there for now. Please do like, subscribe, and share if you have not done so. I would appreciate it. And until the next time I see you, thank you for watching.